Welcome back. My name is Babajide Oluwaseun. Welcome to Zenith Tutorial Center. So, on our last class, we deal with the expectation of the examiner at the professional level. Then we also deal with a key verb that you need to be expected. So, and when you see those keywords, how we are going to deal with it. So, today, we are also going to look at something very important. So, let's go on. Something very, very important you need to watch. How we must, so breaking down what the one requirement into multiple tasks. Hmm? You know, part of the thing we are able to discover is that why students feel is that they were unable to address all the requirements, most of the parts of the requirements. Why they were unable to what to attempt it is because they were unable to what break it that into multiple tasks. You understand? So now that's what we are going to deal with today. So breaking one requirement into multiple tasks. Professional case study requirements often contain more than one task with a single sentence. You see, when you see a single sentence in case study requirement, they are not asking you for one question. No, no. They are asking you for multiple tasks in that one sentence. Candidates must identify and address each task separately. You see, you must address each task separately. Do you understand? So you don't loop it together. You address it one after the other. Hmm? So candidate must identify and address each task separately. So now let's check this example. Example, this is one of the example of the diet requirements that evaluate the internal control weaknesses and recommend improvements. That's one I just so one of the sentences in that particular diet. So now, when you see this question, this require contain two distinct tasks. It contains what? Two tasks. So then, first task in that sentence is that evaluate the internal control weaknesses. Then the second one is that recommend improvement. Now, failure to address these both tasks result in partial marks at best. You know, if you cannot address both marks, you get a little or minimum mark. Candidates are therefore advised to what? To underline the action verb. You underline the action verb. Rewrite the requirement in their own word. You rewrite it in your own word. Allocate space and time to each task before writing. You say, okay, that we use 15 minutes for improvement, recommend improvement, and we use another 15 minutes to evaluate weakness, internal weakness. Yes, then linking action verb to mark allocation. At professional level, marks are allocated in a proportion to the number of tasks that is required. That is how they do it. The other now let me break it down. At this icon one, you know, in your executive summary, you have 20 marks. Requirement one, you have 30, I think 32 marks. Requirement two, 32 marks. So now let's try to calculate it. Let me take my calculator and get that right. Just imagine something like that. So in your you have 32 plus 32 plus 20. That's 84, right? That's 84 plus your 1 mark. That's a cover page. That's 85 plus 10 marks as your appendix. That's 95. Do you see? Then the remaining 5% is if you are writing the best. You are writing a professional one. So your clarity, how clear it is. So that's they give a professional mark. That is 5%. So that is how they mark it. Now, understanding this marking system now. So I want to allocate it to how I want to write my case study. At the professional level, marks are allocated in a proportion to the number of tasks in the requirement. I told us how it's been separate the requirements 1 and 2, then your executive summary. Then the depth of analysis required by the action verb. Then, for example, identify may attract fewer marks than evaluate. Identify may attract fewer marks than evaluate. Because evaluate, based on what I taught us our last class, evaluate as what? Have a lot of things involved. A lot of things involved. You can go and watch that video. A lot of things were involved in evaluation. Then recommend often carry mark for practicality and justification. You see it now. Recommendation also will carry mark. They carry mark because you are telling them practical thing they can go ahead with, which will justify their problem. The candidate should assume that each task within a requirement carry marks and must be addressed accordingly. So you must know that if they say I must identify, if they say recommend, I must also recommend. If it is evaluate, I must know where my mark, where I need to focus on. That's the purpose of it. Writing extensive on one task while ignoring other leads to inefficient use of examination time and loads of mark. So it can make us to lose mark. So I would like you to get this material, try to get it on Seller so that you can have it, you can read it at your own time. In case maybe you are even watching the video and the network is not good, so you can make sure you get the material on Seller, or make sure you also join our WhatsApp platform for updates. And make sure you subscribe to our channel, share it, like it, so that you encourage us. We are doing a free class, so try as much as possible to subscribe, like, and share to your friends so that you can follow us as well. So for any new video, you can review it. So work professional level example. Now, requirement. Now let's look at this requirement. Review the draft financial statement covering management performance on profitability, liquidity, and financial management, and operational efficiency, taking into consideration the explanatory notes. This is the requirement given to you in the exam. Okay, so that's how one of the requirements usually look like. Do you understand? So they can say review a draft financial statement, or they can say review financial statement. You understand when it says draft and when it's not draft now. So that's what, so you understand all this content. Then corporate management performance on the profitability. At times the examiner might not give you all the profitability, liquidity, they will just give it on a plan state that management performance or necessary ratio. Do you understand? Or they can say, they might not even say unnecessary, they will tell you to using necessary tools. And that's why in our first class we mentioned the tools for accountant. So you now understand, which tool can I use? Which tool can I use? Do you understand? Then this is requirements. Now, decoding, let's decode this requirement. Let's decode it. Now, decoding the requirements. Action verb is what? Review. You see, we want to review. Action verb is what? Review. What is the task? Task is saying what? Task, he said we should identify something. He said we should identify profitability, liquidity, financial management, operational efficiency. Now you now say, okay, I have identified this profitability. What are the things I can use to review profitability? Okay, I think I can use gross profit margin. I think I can use ROCE, I can use ROI, I can use net operating so I can use a net operating profit margin as well. So you see, you begin to break it down. You begin to break it down to different words, to different ratios that you can use. Then any of the ratios I have mentioned or the one you can use, make sure you can also give explanation. So I have identified this profitability. You split it to how many categories that the profitability ratio breaks to. Then you don't need, just imagine you have 15 ratio under profitability. You are under exam condition, you are not to write everything. You can just pick like 4 under what? Profitability ratio. But make sure that any 4 you are picking there, you are able to what? To explain it very clearly and very well. Then now, the second one said, I should identify liquidity. Then I say, okay, liquidity, what does the liquidity mean? So then what are the ratio under liquidity? I think I have current assets and current ratio and quick, current ratio and quick ratio, right? say acid test. I have acid test. I have currency also. So I have two. I think, okay, you can go and calculate the two. So you also need to understand what this individual ratio meant. Do you understand? The formula, what does it mean when you get 1.1:2? What does it mean? So all these are the analysis of it. Then financial management. What does the financial management is all about? So the efficiency, the operational efficiency is talking about from the angle of the machine efficiency. So how are they able to manage it? Then why the financial management is talking about from the angle of the gearing aspect. Do you understand? Gearing aspect, did the company involve themselves in loan or they involve themselves in liquidity alone? So that is the financial management angle. You know why the operational efficiency is talking from the angle of the machine efficiency, management efficiency, and other things. You understand? Then additional instruction, use explanatory note. That means examiner might give you explanatory note. That is one I mentioned in our last one, that we have a relevant and irrelevant information. So if the examiner has mentioned this, that use explanatory note, that is telling you that, oh, these things I've given you is a very relevant information you must take cognizance of. These are the relevant exhibits. Do you understand? They will just use a sentence to pick it up. Use a relevant note or use exhibits. That's telling you that this is what relevant data you must go along with. You must make use of. So that is that on that. The examiner now expectation on the above. What the examiner is expecting from that above, we're able to analyze, we're able to pick some things out, right? So what the examiner is expecting is that, one, structural analysis under separate heading. That's what I said. Under profitability, you use heading profitability, right? Then we have had heading as profitability. You now pick the ratio that you want to pick on profitability. You bring it under profitability. Your heading is profitability. When you come to what? To liquidity also, your heading is what? Liquidity. Your heading is liquidity. Same thing goes to financial management, operational efficiency. You understand? So that is a structure. Then use of ratio and figure. Use of ratio. You must have calculated in your appendix. Then use of those figures. You can result in what? You can report in absolute of in percentage. So if you are using all these ratio we mentioned now, you'll be getting percentage. So you bring the end result, which is maybe you get 10%, 30%, 20%. So you bring it into your report. So you come and interpret it. That is the interpretation. You bring it to what? To interpretation, and you now judgment, or you make your judgment on it. That means, what does it mean? What does this 10% mean? Then against 20% of another year, what does it mean? Then make judgment on whether the company is doing better or they are not doing better. If they are not doing better, what is the issue? Then relevant to explanatory notes. So, but you must reference that explanatory notes. They must have give you, they said use what? Explanatory notes. So you reference that explanatory note. As a result of this explanatory note, we are able to discover in the explanatory note. So these 10% were as a result of this. So you relevant it. But at times in some requirements, they might not say using explanatory note. It depends on what the examiner wants for that diet. Then overall conclusion recommendation on management performance. So you now make overall conclusion and recommendation on management performance. Now, overall conclusion and recommendation, it means that it's different from individual one you have discussed under each head here. It's different. It's different. You have, all your dirty works, include all those evaluations you have done. So at the end of your report, you will make conclusion and recommendation. That's what they are telling you here. So you do it. So overall conclusion and recommendation. This conclusion and recommendation, you are still going to do it in your what? In your executive summary. Candidates who merely list ratio, you see now, who merely list ratio or ignore the explanatory notes fail to meet the requirements fully. That is all. So they fail to meet what? The requirements fully. So see this exam guide now. Examiner guide. Candidates should note that correct interpretation of the requirements is the foundation of good answer. That means we must get correct interpretation of it. What does gross profit margin mean? What does ROCE mean? So that is a good interpretation. You use that as a result of it. When you understand the ratio, you'll be able to interpret it well. So it means that every student must go and learn all these ratios. Go and learn it. So you must see it. You will see it in the exam. You are an accountant, right? So you will see it. Action verb determine the depth and style of response. So action verb that they use determine the response that you are going to give back to them. Then planning before writing is essential as a professional. So I have mentioned this times without number. You mentioned the plan. A well-planned answer. A well-planned answer that addresses all tasks sincerely is preferable to a lengthy and unfocused response. So when you give a sincere answer, a well-planned answer, so it's better than the lengthy explanation. So that's under that. So now professional report structure. Professional report structure. Now this one I would like to take it to another one. So our next class now, we are going to look at, I want to explain something in detail because structure is very, very important. It's very, very important at the professional level. So I want to make it to be another video so that you can understand all these things in details, in details. So just make sure you follow our channel and let's do it. Share the channel. Make sure you subscribe for our next class. If you have not get this, if you have not get the material, make sure you try to get it. It's not more than 1,580 on Stella. So try to get so that you can read it on your own, even before class. So thank you very much. Thank you for attending our lecture at the Zenith tutorial. Thank you very, very much.